Hi, my name is
Okay.
Lokesh from City 1016. And as the year is coming to an end, 2020 has been a very, very difficult year for all of us. So we just decided and we thought that it makes perfect sense for us to bring in some people on City 1016 who've made a difference, who've been incredible. And one name which was pretty high on my wish list was Faye. She needs no introduction. She's a very, very, credible, very reputed name when it comes to journalism, who's doing fabulous journalism ever since she started, and she is pretty much on City 1016. Faye, welcome to City 1016.
Thank you so much, Lokesh.
Faye, let's start with the light stuff. I want to know, these are rapid fire kind of questions, so quick answers. A news story that you're very, very proud of in the last, especially in last 1 year.
So the story that we did on KEM, it's called Inside KEM.
Yeah.
We were actually the first news team to go inside a COVID ICU in India, I think.
Yep.
Basically, what happened was at that point, COVID had come to India and Kerala was badly affected, and Mumbai was the first big city that was really badly affected. We were all in lockdown. And, we were hearing stories about the fact that the hospitals were overrun and there wasn't enough space, especially the public hospitals. So we decided to go visit. The first 2 days that we visited, we didn't have permission to shoot. And now that I'm not working for a news organization, I don't have a press ID card anymore. So actually, the cops who were there, pulled us aside. We were shooting on our phones. They deleted all of our visuals. They said, you don't have permission. You can't shoot here. So it was, it was all of that. Then we went back a couple of times. Forgive me, my dog. I work from home, so my dog has an opinion as well. Phoebe, sit down.
That's all right. It's actually interesting because, every time I see you live in the evening, I see her in the background. So it's kind of nice to have that human.
So it was really funny. We started working from home when the lockdown started. And at that time, nobody came to the door because it was locked down. So it was fine and I didn't realize it. But post the lockdown sort of being lifted, now that every time the doorbell rings, she actually starts to bark. And in Mumbai fashion, you know that every day there is a bread under guy who comes over and drops off bread and eggs.
Right.
So, I've told him many times not to ring the doorbell, but it's muscle memory at this point. He just rings all the doorbells every day at 10 to 9 and every day she barks. So now I think my audience has gotten used to it. She's my studio audience.
She is pretty much your studio audience. I was about to say that. Okay, Faye, I wanted to ask you, news inherently, I feel, is kind of biased. When there are a couple of stories in front of you, you choose one story over the other, and from then on it becomes biased. Also, given the platform that you are on YouTube, you're always looking at the numbers, you're always looking at the engagement. I was actually going through a few of your videos. Your average videos are around 15 to 20,000, but your interviews with the celebrities and with politicians have got 100,000 views. And one of the most viewed video on your YouTube channel is the Sushant Singh story, which you avoided for the longest time. And these numbers and these engagements kind of make you choose stories as well in the current scenario. So when news is itself so biased, how do you become impartial and unbiased presenting news?
All right, so there were about 10 questions in that one question. Right? So I don't look at the numbers on YouTube because, and I keep reminding myself, there's a temptation to look at the numbers because it's so readily available. But I keep reminding myself that the reason why I left television was the TRP race. It was my primary reason to exit because it just started to, the race to win TRPs just commands everything else. And the problem with Indian television news right now is that advertising goes to the people with the highest TRPs, and those advertisers don't care what the quality of the content is as long as the TRPs are high, and which is why the quality of the content is so bad because there are no checks and balances. So that's the reason why I left that job, and I want to make sure that we don't fall down that pit. So actually, some of the really, really good content that we have done has 3,000, 4,000 views. But I don't care because it's so strong. Last night.
Does that hurt you? Does that hurt you? Do you think that that's also kind of telling the kind of content that people want? Do you ever think on those lines?
No, because I mean, one of the reasons that you did say that you hope that the team becomes stronger, but one of the reasons why we've kept the team small and we've kept our equipment list small, and my dog is my studio audience, is because I don't want to have to chase the numbers. And even if there are 5,000 people who thought this was good, that's enough for me. The second question of how we choose stories, right? The yardstick that I always use when we choose a story is, and this is a personal yardstick, is to decide how many people does the story affect in numbers, in sheer numbers. So if the question is, and I'll give you a couple of examples. If the question is farmers protesting, I mean, on last estimate, and there are a few people who've estimated about 3 lakh farmers, that's a large number, plus nearly 60% of the country, entire country is engaged in farming one way or the other. That's a massive population that gets impacted with the way this thing progresses, this whole event progresses. If we're talking about petrol prices, everybody gets affected by the price of petrol and diesel. If we're talking about, so we choose the story based on who it impacts. The Sushant Singh Rajput story particularly, I did not touch it until we had one written document to rely on, because the rest of it up till that point was trading of allegations and conspiracy theories, and I don't see that as journalism. Once the NCB arrested Rhea Chakrabarti and submitted a document to court saying these are the reasons why we arrested her, that's when we did the story saying, hey, you know what? Now we have a piece of paper. Now we can examine what the NCB's case is, because up till then there was nothing to examine. And so, how do you do a story if there's nothing to look at?
So coming back to the question, I mean, you talked about how you pick stories that kind of impact everyone. That was pretty much like your style of journalism on Mirror Now as well. I remember a couple of stories that you ran on Mirror Now about reduction of taxes on sanitary napkins, and about the child lock story, the child lock in the car story that you ran, to the point that it had a huge impact, to the point that you made the government take actions also. I remember the GST was reduced on sanitary napkins. I mean, I would definitely give credit to your channel and your journalism, because I don't think so anyone else spoke about it. My question is, when you're running a channel, a YouTube channel, do you think you can have that kind of an impact? And do you think you can make the government make those kind of changes?
I think so. If we didn't believe that, it would be difficult to get up every morning and do the work, right? So the idea is, at least I remember when we did, for example, the KEM story, which is the first story that we put out. In the 2 weeks following, almost all the TV channels went to KEM and said, we also want to shoot here.
Right.
Which was great, because I got messages from those doctors saying, hey, we've got like a beeline of channels that want to come in. So I believe we were able to influence a trend where other channels were also looking at the same thing. And if we're able to do that, then we can get government attention. And if we're able to get government attention, then you can action change. And I honestly believe the job of a journalist is to draw attention to problems and to ask questions and insist on answers. So when you do these 3 things, when you draw attention to suffering, to injustice, to inequality, and to problems, and you're able to point it out to the right people, and you're able to make a strong enough case, you can, in fact, action change. And honestly, actioning change is a bonus. It doesn't always happen. Specifically with the 2 stories that you talked about, we did it as campaigns over 2 years. And we went and met ministries, we presented them with our arguments, we went back and checked with them over and over and over and over again. And they were also, with the sanitary napkins, there was also a case going on in the Delhi High Court on the same matter. Yeah. So, and there were a lot of NGOs that were also involved in it. So it was it was an all-round 360 campaign, but it happens over a longer period of time. And I think that, all journalists should remember that consistency is really important. When you decide you want to pick up a particular story, you have to follow up, you have to stay on it, you have to decide that this is something that we will keep doing until there is a resolution of some sort.
Faye, from being a journalist now to a journalist and an entrepreneur as well, you are running a YouTube channel. You're at the helm of things. You're responsible for a few people's salaries as well. How difficult does it get to do journalism and also keeping the economics of it in mind? And also, if you could just talk about the business model of what you're doing right now in detail, that would really help.
Sure. So it's scary because you know that you're responsible for a couple of people and their livelihood. So you have to make sure there's enough money in the bank, which is not always the case. I mean, I've not taken a salary now for several months. I'm sort of eating through my savings, but the business model we're working through is actually really good. So first of all, we get YouTube revenue from the views that we get and the ads that play in the middle of those videos. There is a share of revenue. Our second route is something called the super chat feature inside of YouTube, where people, pay money to be able to ask questions in the middle of shows. That really goes a long way in helping us pay salaries and sort of stay afloat. Plus, we're working with other organizations, doing shows, doing stories for other organizations as well, and that pays us. We're looking forward to partnering with brands on specific causes. So not advertisements, but specific causes. So brands, for example, who are working on empowerment of women, safety of women, things like that, things where we agree in philosophy. Those are campaigns that we'd like to work on in terms of creating content and covering stuff that matters. So, for example, I'm in conversation with someone to do an entire series on the idea of consent, talking to young people in India on what consent is, and how yes means yes is different from no means no. That's a space that we've really nicely occupied, and then we will be very soon opening up memberships for our audience. So audience can become members of our product, where they'll get access. They'll be able to join conference calls, ask questions about the content like you're asking right now, and they'll get more content. So they get in-depth stories. They'll get interviews before everybody else, like that sort of thing. So all of these sort of avenues together is the business model that we're going to be working with.
Is it difficult? Is it challenging? Why I ask this question, because like we were talking about, the number of hits that you get on your videos is pretty much like the TRPs in news channels. And with the kind of stuff that's happening on news channels, people are reporting from bathtubs and getting into astronaut suits and reporting, just for the eyeballs, because advertisers care only about how many TRPs you have. And there's such a huge debate going on about who the real consumer is, because the advertisers are the real consumers of the news channels. Similarly, when these brands move to a digital platform, how difficult and how challenging does it get to kind of make sure that you have the right kind of engagement with the people?
So, see, the good thing right now about the YouTube model and the way it functions is that the brands are associated directly with YouTube. I'm not having conversations with them. YouTube is placing them on the videos based on the nature of the video that we put out. So we're our aim is to grow our membership, which we are growing. We're at 155,000 now. 157,000. Oh, thank you.
By 2.
And we want to do that by putting out consistently good content. I must confess, I tell all of the young people who access our YouTube channel to take their parents' phones and subscribe to us on their parents' phones, so that their parents have access to it as well. But the idea is to be able to build a strong base of people who come to us for the quality of the work that we're doing, and through that create a brand that people can trust. I believe there's a certain lack of dignity in the way television deals with news right now. And that's what we're hoping to remedy. So we're trying to, the aim is, I've actually said this out loud to anyone, but the aim is to actually change the way news is done in India, and to be able to offer something that's better, that's more wholesome, that's more respectful.
Your optimism is really infectious, Faye, I must tell you that. No, seriously, hear you talk is really, because, one has almost like really given up on the way the news is done in India. And you're very polite when you say that there's lack of dignity. I guess it's really hit the rock bottom, when it comes to having any kind of dignity in the news channel, especially. I wanted to know, your channel is definitely one of the most credible ones, but you also have the wires and the prints, Barkha Dutt is doing Mojo Story as well. There's News Laundry that I have subscribed to. Is there a competition amongst these channels as well? Secondly, do you think the existence of these channels are also creating further echo chambers in the digital world?
So first question first. Incidentally, as opposed to what happens on television, it's not cutthroat competition in the digital space. We're actually working together. We're helping each other out. And I remember when I was starting, I spoke to almost everyone you listed out, asking for advice on how to do this, what's the right way to do it. Should I be spending a lot of money and getting a team together, or should we do it piece by piece? So they were all very kind with their time and their advice, and that really helped, which is such a refreshing change from the space that television is in right now. I'm sorry, what was your other question? Is it an echo chamber? Right.
Yeah.
I take solace from the fact that there's a fair amount of trolling that happens at the bottom of all my YouTube videos, which means that there are people from the other side also listening. And very often I'll get a comment saying that, I don't agree with Faye Dsouza on everything, but I see the point. Which for me is fantastic, because that's the whole, that's the endeavor, that you don't have to agree with me on everything, but here we have some information for you, and if you find that information valid, then we've done the job that we're supposed to do today. And the kind of journalism that I'm experimenting with right now, and I was experimenting with, this is the kind of journalism that should be done, is no opinion, no activism, no outrage at all. So even when the Hathras case happened, and normally if I were on television, I would have allowed it to make me very angry, but I didn't put out my opinion at all. And I said, you know what, as a journalist, I'm just not going to give my opinion. I'm just going to tell you what happened. We will invite guests who understand the subject matter better than us.
All so, for example, I mean, that was incredible. Yeah. That was fantastic. See, I have goosebumps as I'm talking about it.
No, because, and it's such a learning curve. I like that space. It's an open, it's a freer space. It's a more respectful place where everybody can learn, as opposed to, there's no gully galoch. There's nobody, waiting for you to make a desperate mistake so that they can jump on you, which is nice.
So it's a good thing that we're not only converting the converted, but we're not only preaching to the choir, but we are actually getting those people, engaging with those people who might not be on the other side, but at least sitting on the fence and making an opinion, watching the videos. Faye, before I let you go, if you could just react to a few things in a word or in a line. Let's see how
you going to get me into trouble?
No, I'm not saying it. This is just for fun's sake. I just thought that it would be interesting. Journalism in India?
Going through a tough phase.
Okay. Barkha Dutt's COVID coverage on ground reporting?
Award worthy.
Riya Chakrabarti?
An example of dignity.
Okay. Rahul, Shiv Shankar and Navika Kumar?
Former colleagues.
I like how you're so polite. Okay, I've saved this one for the last. Arnav Goswami.
Quit journalism to start his own company, so who am I to judge?
Thank you so much for being so incredible, Faye, as always, and more power to you.
Before I go, so I have family that lives in Dubai. So a shout out to my sister Francesca, my nephew Avon, and to my brother-in-law Charit, who live in Dubai. And I hope they're listening to this. And I know that they listen to your station because they told me that it's really popular and it's really cool. So yay! I'm on Dubai radio. So excited.
Thank you so much.
City 1016.